Hi y'all, this is Larry at Deep South Texas. It's been a busy couple weeks in the garden and it's time to take another look. We're going to do kind of a full garden tour today, and we're going to be harvesting some vegetables. So stick around. So let's start off with the tomatoes. These are the Biltmores here, and we have harvested a dozen, maybe 2 dozen very large tomatoes off of this bed, and we're going to harvest some more today. I usually pick them when they get a blush on them, even though I have netting, bird netting on the plants. When the tomatoes get to this point, I like to get them inside and away from the critters. And we'll also be harvesting a couple beefsteaks, and then quite a few of the red Siberians. All right, let's harvest some tomatoes. So like I said, we've already been harvesting tomatoes for the last couple weeks. In fact, last week we canned up 12 quarts of tomatoes, so that's pretty nice. I think I have enough tomatoes already inside to can up 6 to 8 pints of salsa as well. But these Biltmores are just big tomatoes. I just love them. And these will get fully ripe in the house in about 2 days. And here is my tomato harvest for today. Now, I haven't picked tomatoes for 3 days, so this is 3 days worth of ripening tomatoes, and it looks to me like we'll get that many again in another 3 days. On an earlier video I talked about we planted some tomatoes that we didn't know the variety. It was seeds we saved. Well, this is it, and so it looks like a Cherokee purple. Gotten a lot of nice tomatoes off of those plants, but they're about done for the year. And the same for the indigo. I have some indigos yet I could pick, but those plants are starting to suffer pretty badly with the heat. So they're about done. And actually, in the end of May, tomatoes are usually done for me here at Deep South Texas. It just gets too hot for them. I am going to try to put some shade cloth over this bed just to see if that helps. It'll keep the sun away, but I don't think it can do anything for the heat. But we're going to try it this year. And even though most of these tomatoes in this bed are Biltmores, which is a determinate tomato, I have noticed in the past that they will put on more flowers a little bit later in the year, and so I'm going to try to save them because, you know, I just love these big tomatoes. I think they're great. The peppers have been doing extremely well for me this year as well, and I'm so happy about that because I've tried for years to grow peppers and never been successful. And I have to, right now I'm attributing this great pepper harvest to getting those peppers in the ground early. I know everybody says peppers love the heat, they do well in the heat, but it's too hot at Deep South Texas for peppers. But if I got them in early enough this year, that I'm going to get a pretty nice harvest. Let's let's get a few. So we have Marconi right here in front. Now look at the size of that Marconi pepper. That is great. I think there's a few more in there ready to harvest like this as well. So I did harvest 4 huge Marconi peppers and 1 big green bell pepper. And there's a couple green bell peppers in here. Might be kind of hard to see. There it is. It's turning chocolate color. So soon that one will be turning red, and I'm going to save the seeds from that one. And while we're here, we're going to harvest some jalapenos as well. We harvested 12 big ones last week and made jalapeno poppers with them, but there's more to harvest, and we need to get some for our salsa. Well, that ought to be enough jalapenos for the salsa. A pretty nice haul, and there's still plenty more on the plants. Now let's harvest some big Jim peppers. I've got a couple barrels full of them. I'm going to take a bunch off of that barrel, and then some off of this barrel. We've already harvested some off of this barrel, but there are some in there turning red. We're going to leave those and collect the seed. There's a nice one, just starting to turn red. There are 2 on here that are turning red. I'm just going to leave those. But there's a couple up here. Let's get them. And there is my basket full of peppers. It looks pretty good. I have more plebanos coming on, but I won't be harvesting them today. And one of the other peppers that we won't be harvesting today, but that are looking really good, are the paprika peppers. So they're getting ready to harvest as well. I think in my last video I called these pimentos, but they're paprikas. I have 2 barrels of these. And here is the other barrel. It's got some peppers that are getting ripe as well. This is right next to my eggplant. We're going to harvest a couple eggplants today as well, but there are a bunch of them in there that look like they're ready. It's one thing about eggplants. You always get more eggplants than you can eat. I mean, I really like them, but there's only so much fried eggplant I can take. And another vegetable seems like I always get too much of is our cucumbers. I'm off picking small ones. I'm going to pick a bunch of small ones today. I've got 7 quarts of pickles already canned this year, and I'm just going to try to get some baby dills, although this one I missed. So here are my eggplant and cucumbers. Like I say, I'm trying to pick them small. I want to can one quart of baby dills, and it's easy to miss them, and they get too big, so I've been picking them every day. Let me show you another thing that's easy to miss, and that is zucchini. So both my wife and I check for zucchinis every day, and lo and behold, yesterday when I was looking around the garden for what to film, I ran across this monster. So actually I harvested this yesterday. I don't know how we could have possibly missed that for so many days, but we'll slice that up, grill it, and eat it with a little blue cheese dressing. It'll be wonderful. And we have a few more onions that are ready to harvest. Look at the size of that onion. Pretty nice. Now this onion's not quite ready to harvest yet, but look at the size of that onion. That's our biggest one this year. Now these aren't the onions that I planted from seed. These are onions that my wife purchased plants at Lowe's, and she wanted me to remind you these were her onions. I've already harvested all of my onions, and I have them on this rack drying, but these are the ones I planted from seed. Pretty nice harvest. So I have 4 real nice squash coming on. Going to harvest one of these today as well. Probably this one down here, since it was the first one. The dill is doing great. This is where I harvested the dill from my dill pickles. And the fennel. The fennel is going to seed. I thought it took fennel 2 years to go to seed, but it doesn't look like it. So we'll get some seed off of that this year, and that's really what I'm looking for. The cherry tomatoes, they're looking pretty sick. They're looking pretty sick. So we got a lot of cherry tomatoes, but usually these last into the heat, but not this year. They must have picked up some sort of disease. My butternut squash, it's not doing well either. So it's put on 4 small squash, but I think that's going to be about it for the year. That's okay. The okra, on the other hand, is doing great. It's doing great. It's getting ready to put out blooms. It won't be long till we are eating okra. In fact, I think that looks like an okra flower ready to open up there. The sweet corn is doing good. So this is the candy corn here. I planted about a month later than the other corn, and the other corn is G90, and it's in tassel. It has silks coming out, so we'll be enjoying this corn, sweet corn, before long. Cherokee tan pumpkins are growing well. Haven't seen any flowers yet or fruit on this plant. And this watermelon is trying to take over the garden. So just starting to see some fruit show up. Not sure if any of it has really set yet, but it's going to be loaded. I have replanted this bed where I had the red Norland potatoes with pink-eyed purple hull peas. They grew real well for me last year, but something came and ate them as soon as they were ready to harvest, so I have to keep an eye on these. I've harvested all the leeks except for 5 that have gone to seed. So we're going to let this seed mature and collect it for next year. I have all my sweet potato slips planted now. The sweet potatoes are doing great. I've dug up those potatoes that were here I was growing the slips from, and I actually had enough to put in another 12 slips over here. So we're going to have sweet potatoes this year. This is where I had my onions, and I think I'm going to try to plant pinto beans here just to see how they do. It's sort of ridiculous to try to grow your own pinto beans because they're so cheap, but I want to give it a try. Here are some kind of New Mexico hot peppers. They're doing great. Some of them had turned red, and I had picked those to put in my green beans, or in my cucumbers, my dill pickles. And we have some habaneros growing over here. They were kind of slow to start, but they're doing well now. Another pepper that was really slow getting started was the cayennes, but they're doing well now and putting on peppers. The banana trees, they seem to be loving it where they're at. This is really interesting to watch them grow. And the cantaloupe have really taken off, and they're starting to put on fruit. Fruit's pretty small yet, but I'm seeing it, and it looks like it's probably been pollinated, so I think we're going to get cantaloupes this year. The ginger is doing well, but no sign of turmeric yet. And the moringa trees are starting to come around, at least a few of them. And here is my harvest for today. Couldn't be happier. Got 5 real large onions, a whole bowl full of peppers, and a big bowl of tomatoes, a couple eggplants, some cucumbers, a nice squash, and a giant zucchini. This is the best year I've had in the garden. I couldn't be happier about the results this year. Still looking forward to some sweet corn, some okra, some sweet potatoes, but it's looking pretty good. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it that thumbs up. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time.